Welcome to TV Free Baltimore's Celebrity Interviews. In this episode, we interview the amazing Kreskin.
My career has really been like an adventure, I would have to say, because I performed in parts of the world where the audiences did not speak my language, like Japan. Mm-hmm. But I have a way of functioning, because I'm dealing with the mind, mm-hmm. which may make it interesting if I tried to read the mind of a certain person on camera. No. Anyway, but so I think the reason. I got to say something. I think the reason that, I've done over 1,000 university shows in this country and Canada, mm-hmm. and my audiences are now 3 generations, mm-hmm. people are fascinated with the mind and the unknown forces of how we think, but also, and sociologists who've now researched my remarks have said we never realized this. Before the Civil War, before World War I, before World War II, and now there has been gigantic resurge of interest in the paranormal. Mm-hmm. Ironically enough, and this is not an area that I particularly endorse, there was interest in all those areas dealing with spirit communication because you had seances years ago and so forth. I think this is a reflection not of that answers are there, but people are looking for other answers because we're not given any. Right. We're not satisfied. Exactly. And sociologists and our research said, my God, yes, before World War II, before World War I, and so forth. But man, we'll always be looking for answers. And the truth of the matter is, my degree's in psychology. I have never met more whacked out people in my life than in the field of psychiatry. And every few years, there's a new theory on why we behave the way we do. The one thing that we don't seem to have an answer to is how people in broadcasting and television think. It's been an unsolved mystery.
Well, guess what?
What?
I have a master's degree in psychology.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Oh, folks, I dare not tell you what I think, not on camera, or will be. Isn't that one? Did you go into practice at all?
Yes, and master's degree in social work as well.
Oh my!
I did both.
Yeah, Mike.
This is a sideline sort of.
A person who was very special. She was very enthusiastic about me. Was a great anthropologist years ago, Dr. Margaret Mead.
Margaret Mead, wonderful woman.
And she used to bring a few hundred college students to my performances. She says, "You want to know?" She says, "All right, I teach the world activity, the way people think and what have you. You want to really see something that really is happening?" And she would bring people to see me, but. And people have forgotten her, but when there were controversies, she was on all kinds of talk shows on every topic you could imagine.
That's true.
My God, I am talking to a psychologist.
Her Growing Up in Samoa was a famous book of hers.
Well, she had experiences there,
which
she described as almost telepathic experiences, because between tribes there seemed to have been communications. That's the other thing that concerns me today, and you would understand this. We are losing, in many respects, our ability to communicate because we're relying so much on mechanical objects.
I was going to say the dangers of the internet.
Oh, we're not relating as much as we once. And I have nothing against computers and cell phones, but when you sit down with someone in a restaurant you're in love with or have a response with and so forth and put a cell phone down, that's not a good signal on how you want to relate to them.
Exactly.
There shouldn't be that barrier there. Right. But I didn't mean to go into this. But talking to him, it's not so bad after all. I'm not saying the best. No, I'm kidding. You are great to talk to.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Now, in my research, I think mentalism, at least far back as I could go, I think the gentleman's name was Scotto. I don't know if you know. It was the 1500s.
Oh, yeah.
in Italy.
Oh my God, you know about that person?
He was one of the first famous ones.
Yes.
And throughout history, there have been others. And in more recent history, I could say Alexander, if you know who he was.
Yes.
There's that great poster, is Alexander knows, and there's a question mark.
Yeah.
Dunninger.
But you know what's interesting about, and some were more legitimate and some were less legitimate. But what's interesting is how areas that almost related to them, such as Rasputin.
Yes, Rasputin too, yeah.
And people don't realize the effect that he had in the government, because when you had a boy that was suffering from hemophilia, and in those days, pain was not easily erased. And this man who was poor, was unclean, as it turned out, his life was as unclean as he was unclean, but somehow had some gift of communication, was able to arrest the pain in the son of the heads of Russia. What was scary after that was the unquestionable influence he had, and his death with it took almost a day and a half to kill him, because he was shot and everything else. But it was remarkable. But also, what people do not know is that Adolf Hitler had a key influence behind.
Well, actually, there was like that Jan.
Yeah, von Heusen.
I read a book about him.
Yeah,
actually, I talked to the author.
But you know what is scary? What is scary about when they murdered von Heusen?
They killed him.
It was this. The fear was this: that his influence was such that he could take over the government, because Hitler really thought in terms of power. And by the way, and I've talked, when Hitler appeared in public, it's not often commented on, but I've known enough people who are no longer with us, he had the same mannerisms on von Heusen he learned.
Interesting.
Now, but look at before that, you had Mesmer, Franz Anton Mesmer, who preceded hypnotism and had an incredible, the doctors threw him out of Paris and what have you, not just because he had a way of easing people's troubles, but there was even political power involved in medicine, and let's not comment any further there.
No, but let me keep going.
Yeah.
Now, we'll go back to when you were a child, New Jersey.
How it all started?
Yeah, I mean, what attracted you at such a tender age to the profession of mentalism?
Yeah. Well, a gentleman came here at this affair yesterday who knew a man well, and I said, "Oh my God, when did we have lunch, you and I?" He said it was at Sardi's, and it was with Lee Falk.
Okay.
When I was a little boy, 5 years old, I was visiting some family in Bethlehem with my parents, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and a young man handed me a comic book called Mandrake the Magician. Mandrake the Magician was written by Lee Falk.
Okay.
And what people don't know is during the Second World War in Australia, the Phantom, his other character, was a monumental popular strip. But the dilemma was that in Italy, which at that point was an enemy because you had Mussolini, and you had, of course, Hirohito in Japan and Hitler in Germany. But the big comic strip was Mandrake, and Mussolini was saying, no, no, no. This is written by an American. Someone else will write it. The man who rewrote the comic and dreamt of doing a movie on him but never could figure out how to do it was Fellini. Fellini did the... Really? But I was handed this comic, and Mandrake was not really a magician. He had hypnotic abilities, he had telepathic abilities, he was solving crimes and what have you. Someday I will talk to you about it, because only a half a dozen have been made public, but in my career I've been called on 84 crime cases. I think I've been helpful in about a third of them, and not that I looked into a crystal ball. It had to do with working people with their memories, jogging and clarifying things and what have you. I was handed the comic book, and I was enamored with this man who solved crimes and had this hypnotic ability and what have you. And then in third grade, one of the pivotal moments of my entire life took place. It was raining outside, and Miss Curtis, our grade school teacher, said, "You're not going to go out and play today. I'm going to teach you a game." So Jane, it was Jane Hamilton. I guess we were 9 years old. She said, "Go out in the hallway, we'll close the door." And we hid a beanbag in the classroom. We put it in someone's desk, I guess. So we called Jane back in, and you walk around. If you're near, we'll see you're getting warm. If you're not near, you're getting cold. Hot and cold, which played as kids. And she found it in someone's desk, I guess, have you. And I was disappointed I wasn't picked to play. Right. So I go home that day, and my brother, who's 3 years younger, was home. My mother was shopping. My father was at work. I said, "Let's go over to Grandma and Grandpa's house. They were from Sicily. They built this house with their own hands. They didn't speak much English. I loved them dearly." I said, "Joey, hide a penny upstairs." I gave him a penny, because they rented the downstairs. He calls me. I run upstairs. I walk into this gigantic kitchen, old-fashioned kitchen. My grandma didn't know what was going on. She didn't speak much English. I walked into Michael's bedroom, climbed up on a chair, reached behind a curtain rod, and felt the penny. And then it dawned on me, I forgot to tell Joey to talk to me or say anything. And that was the turning point from 4th grade to 6th grade on, at show and tell in my classrooms, I would try experiments with my students. And it was the beginning. By the time I was 12 years old, I was getting big money for my shows, $5.
Wow.
That was not minimum wage, but I didn't have the corruption of lawyers telling me how to run my career. If you read what I don't mean, there's been a lot said lately because there's pictures of me on the news with Hillary Clinton and Donald. I performed in Trump's home. I've been around them a lot, but if anyone wanted to know, whenever this is heard, how I will or have voted, I can say what most people felt. Voted for the person I felt will do the less harm.
Agree.
Period.
I agree with you on that.
I'm sorry if I sounded...
No, I agree with you on that.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right. But let me say, did you have then any mentors?
No, not at all.
Where did you learn the techniques of your craft?
On my own.
On your own, totally.
Yes, I never had a teacher in my life.
So it's not anybody who said these are these mnemonic techniques you could use, or
no. Oh, I read about mnemonics
in books.
I can memorize, not because of mnemonics.
No,
I've never said this on tele. I've never said this before, but it's known by the gay, because I'm banned from all the casinos in the Western world.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, in Peru, a few years ago, about 8-9 years ago, I was performing at a casino, and the people who were coming to see, people in Peru didn't know who I was. It was people from England, from the States, from Canada. And the closing night, I said to my road manager, well, we don't leave till, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm going to go to a casino next door. And I went in and I had $37.
Okay.
And it wasn't, and I converted it, and I didn't understand the money, and I played. And by 11:30, the dealers were looking at me angrily at the other tables because it turns out the casino either closed at 11 or 12, but they kept it open because of 2 reasons. I was winning, and they were hoping I would win back.
Oh.
That's why casinos were not built by winners. Remember that.
Exactly. Well, let me ask
you.
So
by the bottom line is, I left with cash, found a place to convert it.
How much?
Flew home. But someone helped me in my dressing room. A musician from the States who booked me came into I called him at 2:30. He says, what the hell did you do? Help me pack the money. I had from $37 left with American currency of $22,400. That's the exact amount of money, $22,400.
Amazing.
I can memorize a shuffle deck of cards in about 3.5 to 5 seconds.
Now, so let me ask you this.
There's no gimmick. It's just...
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this. A lot of times you give disclaimers to people.
Yes.
You say, I do not claim to have any supernatural ability.
No, I don't.
Do you think you have some extraordinary natural abilities, like an extremely good retentive memory, maybe even eidetic memory?
I think I also have a high intuitive ability, a high sensitivity.
I was going to say that.
Dr. Margaret Mead she says, I want you to call yourself a sensitive because...
Or an empath.
Yes. Years ago, if you read the old books around the 1900s, before that, people who had unusual, and some of them were spirit mediums, which I'm not in the medium, but they were called sensitives because it was that's the way you say an empath. And but I said to her, Dr. Mead, if I said that, I have to explain to my audience for the first 10 minutes what the hell a sensitive is. And they go, but she meant well in that area. But the bottom line is, because I had no boundaries. I mean, there were boundaries that I found myself. I was never taught by any human being on the face of the earth. And people who know me, have written about me, know well I found my way. And what was incredible, and I like to say this as a message to people in teaching and also to parents. I had a teacher in 4th and 6th grade. Sure, I went to high school. I was already performing professional. I went to Seton Hall University where I got my degree in psychology, but I was already traveling all over the place. I didn't find out until I finished college, a couple of years later, that my Miss Galloway, my 4th and 6th grade teacher, quietly wrote letters to my teachers in junior high and high school, all the teachers saying, I don't understand what he does. You must support him. Something like that in the written handwriting, which is disappearing today.
Yes.
A person writing a small note to someone you have no idea what impact that can have on them, because it's not common today.
No, exactly right.
Can you imagine her doing something like that?
No. Now, the thing was, we would say, at least I'll say, you don't have extrasensory perception, but we will say you have heightened natural sensitivity.
To a very high degree. And I don't brag about it, what have you, but I have, there's some disadvantages because my hearing, and a lot of people in television know about it because it's crazy. I can't right now, but I can usually tell you what a person is saying at the third table from here and sit in a restaurant and tell you the conversation of 12 different tables. But the problem is my hearing is such that I can't go into a noisy restaurant where there's I can't stand because it's like I'm being hit with that's my problem. That's the negative
sensory
side.
Overload.
Yeah,
in a sense.
And talk about sensory overload. I don't want to tell you how he's influencing. No, I'm kidding you. You know what? If we can't laugh at ourselves today with what's going on, we're in great deal. I have a sign in my office because I travel endlessly and what have you. Right. If anyone ever calls me politically correct, kick me in the ass. We've got, in the Second World War, if you looked at Bob Hope's jokes, they were kidding each other and kidding the enemy and mocking the enemy. We've lost something.
Right.
We better get our act together.
Exactly.
And learn to laugh and feel, and because there were even famous performers that came on Johnny Carson's show acting as if they were intoxicated. It was not insulting because I worked for AA, performer many times. But we have to sometimes laugh at things. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been tested by psychologists for your memory and some of your other sensitivity?
By a number of psychiatrists privately and through the years, but I never wanted it to be something for public conception because I didn't want to use it. I didn't want to use it for that kind of purpose. Yes,
we won't say it then. We'll just say that you do this for entertainment.
But I have worked with a number of very famous psychiatrists and now gone today who've. Someday I'll talk about the experiences I had. By the way, when I kid the field of psychiatry, sure, Freud wrote in his early writings there was a lot of disturbed people that were going into the field. But
true,
there are some fabulous people in the field.
No, I
some
understand.
Very fabulous. And you understand, I didn't mean that maliciously.
No, I know that.
By the way, just so I can clear one thing,
yes, sir.
I have nothing against politicians. I just wish that most of them had been on the Titanic. And you can quote me because I mean that.
Now let me ask you this one, because I know
sure?
you won't get away with it.
You sure you want to ask me that? No, I'm kidding.
No, you ought to know. You know what I'm going to ask you, don't you?
Let's go. He's not stopping, folks.
No, here it is. Do you have any predictions you can share?
Well,
knowing we will not air this for a few months.
No, I'd like to say the election's over with, but I believe one of the greatest crises that we're going to have, and I'm sitting down with a group of behaviors who are writers in the next couple of months separately to discuss this at some length because they say, Kreskin, you deal with partly tapping into the privacy of people's thoughts and what have you. We now know, and it's become very much talked about in the past few weeks or so, but in the book I've written, which is
this new book,
it's called In Real Time. It's my predictions, and I'm not a fortune teller. It's my predictions of what's going to be happening in the weeks, months, years, decades, and centuries to come, because a lot of this, the groundwork has been laid just the way history has laid it. I think we have two great dangers, and if you want, sure, we have enemies. And enemies are going to be there, and you can't buy them off, and you can't pay them off, even if you give them $20 million or what have you. But we now have a point for the first time in the history of mankind. And college students, when they write me, say, Kreskin, our professors have never said in this way, we're reaching a point where there'll be no secrets left on the face of the earth at all. And I say at all because you will now, and it's already put in the machine. You'll go into a department store and look at a certain kind of dress or a certain kind of men's clothing, a few other things, and then you'll start getting magazines and so forth about men's clothing because every place you glance at is going to be photographed. Right. You have no idea of who you're with if you're being tape recorded and what have you, whether it's a love affair, what have you. This is for the first time. The only thing we have left is just almost our privacy of our thoughts, and this never existed to this degree before. But the other thing that worries me as much, and I talk about this, and I got more comments on that part of my book, the fact that if you examine ancient Rome and so forth, you realize at one point that the Romans, who were giving things away to get their votes, giving a lot of things away, giving entertainment away in the Colosseum, but still they were not getting the favoritism and support after a while, the people. So they had to go one step further. They had to make their entertainment more violent. And it got more violent, whether you were throwing Christians or what have you, and what have you. And if you look at entertainment today, and go to, and I love movies, but go to a movie early enough to see 20 minutes of the coming attractions at the end, and people who I know in Hollywood say, Kreskin, we feel the same way. At the end, the attractions have been so noisy that you can't even distinguish one movie from the noise is great, and the violence, you're almost becoming immune to it, which worries me, because it happened in ancient Rome. It was the downfall of their culture, the beginning of it. After the violence becomes so, then you have a period of boredom. And man is more dangerous, not in violence, but in boredom. What it leads to, for God's sake, start asking questions about that factor. I'm not an alarmist, but no one has talked about that.
Right. Well, let me ask you, I think, one last thing, because you make a lot of predictions, obviously, in this book.
Yes.
Since you say you do not have any psychic ability, what do you base your predictions upon?
All right, I'll tell you.
I mean, what methods do you use?
All right, first of all, I'm an avid reader. We're adding a new branch to my home because I already have 9,000 books.
Wow.
When I'm home, I read 4 books a night.
That's terrific.
It takes me about 12, 14 minutes to read a novel and about half hour. And by the way, people in talk show radio and so forth and know me well enough that when I've come on shows and they had a guest that had written a book, 50 minutes before I'll read, and I'll go on, they'll say, well, when did you get the book, Kreskin? And the host will say, you're not going to believe he just saw. So I read a lot of opinions. I don't read just things that support my thinking.
Right.
I read 4 newspapers a day. When I get home this week, there'll be about 40 on the table from New York to so forth. I constantly sample people's thoughts, and I'm working with audiences. My equipment is really not a deck of cards or some props or what have you. It's how people think. And I want to tell you something. When you start hearing patterns in the way people are thinking, not that they're thinking exactly the same thought, but a certain pattern of fear or concert, so forth, a theme, you begin to see that these people in some way either themselves are sensing how things are going to go or how they're going to unconsciously cause things to go themselves.
Right.
Because I don't misunderstand me. Spontaneity is wonderful, but an awful lot of what we do is not accidental. You know that, and I know that.
So you synthesize a lot of information.
But I do it. I don't. I got to take this one step. Okay. No, I don't.
You don't.
I don't sit and start writing down everything like that.
No.
Let's learn from JFK and other people. I can tell you through history. I do this unconsciously because I jog an hour every night. Half an hour. I do half an hour.
Great.
JFK, after he met with all his military advisors and everything else, would close the door in his office and read pulp trash magazines. Trash, you'd say, my God. It was to get his mind off of all this.
Right, exactly.
So that when he started reflecting, things were a little bit different and clear. Einstein, whom I revere, and how he embarrassed when he was in college, one of his teachers who didn't believe in the hereafter of God or what have you, and Einstein did. And when it was over with, the class thought that Einstein's going to be thrown out, and the professor decided this man is going to be a genius because of how he analyzed and said, I want to question your not feeling that there's not a greater power, what have you. When he was teaching in New Jersey, he would go out in a rowboat in the middle of the lake, row the middle, and pull the oars in and let the boat drift. I jog. I tune in on my unconscious by shutting, and I don't jog with earphones or listen to music. I jog because I listen to myself. And I'm not talking about some magic.
No,
that's the
understand.
key of what I'm doing.
Well, that makes sense because
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm a walker. Like
Are
I'll
you
take
a
long
walker?
distance walks, like 2-3 miles.
Do you really?
And when I do that, I'm thinking. I'm not consciously thinking,
No.
but the thoughts come to you or things come to you.
But often you get answers unexpectedly.
Exactly.
Some of the finest additions in a song that Johnny Mercer wrote or what have you was when he was strolling by himself and so forth, because he shut off all the pressures and let the come. And believe me, it's a tremendous tool. And we're too busy. I don't mean that we shouldn't be busy, because I'm busy.
Yes, you are.
But we got to stop the world and get off.
Exactly.
Everybody has to find. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's running on a track or tossing a ball into a net back and forth or any. There's so many. Or as Einstein did. Just can you imagine JFK reading? And it was trash magazines.
Trash magazines.
Now I don't do that. I'm not even accusing anybody of doing it, but I like to start rooms.
Right. I read Playboy for the articles. Yeah.
No, these are worse than life. Listen, it is a joy speaking to you.
Now, tell us, please, about how to contact you, get a hold of your book's information. Tell us about your website, please, your contact information.
I appreciate that. It's amazingkreskin.com. Amazingkreskin.com. My book in real time. I'm very proud about this. It can be ordered that way, or you can go to bookstores. You can go on Amazon. It's all over the place. But I'll sign it if it's sent to me. But go to amazingkreskin.com. And now there are some 30, 40, 50 television shows I've done through the years on that. But look at some of the interviews and commentaries, including, hopefully, we might get a piece of this to put on, because it's seen all over the world. And I get. By the way,
yes,
I want to say one more thing. One of the other passions of my life are animals.
Oh, okay.
I love animals.
Terrific. You have pets?
I have 2 cats. I had 4. I've had cats through the years because they're easier traveling for people to take care of at my house.
Right.
I love dogs. If I didn't travel, I have 6 dogs, 4 cats, and a pig. Because some of the smaller pigs are very intelligent animals.
Pot-bellied pigs?
But some of them are very intelligent animals.
Pigs are an intelligent animal.
By the way, the reason, and I've been quoted as far away as Germany in German literature, the reason dogs make better friends than people is they wag their tails, not their tongues.
There we go. We will end on that one, and we'll say, Kreskin, you truly are amazing.
Well, you got that first statement, please.
You've been watching Celebrity Interviews on TV Free Baltimore.